For this time, may I please invite Dr. Surya Tripathi for short some speech of seminar.
I would like to let everybody feel relaxed and maybe no man, I will be hold the position here for only for welcome all everyone, and then I will be go to sit down there and would like everyone to introduce yourself because we are not that many people now, so we can introduce and a little bit sharing with our speaker, board of speaker that is very honorary speaker today. So dear Robert Blum and also and Michael Bongdong Priyapan, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Surya Tripathi, Director of the National Institute for Child and Family Development. Actually, I'm really delightful to collaboration working with the Senate, Parliament, and also Ministry of Human Security and Social Development, and with all of us who is working in the child and adolescent area. Today, main objective, we are talking about the adolescent health, especially in the teenage pregnancy. That is really crisis problem. If you learn about, according to the UNICEF report in 2004 and 2009, formerly many years ago, you will see that UNICEF also reporting the international one, and at that time, 2004, the report of the world average teen birth rate, teenager birth rate is 65. I remember that, 65. For the regional in Asia, it's 56. Especially for the Thailand, it's 70 at that time. I mean, many years ago. And United States is maybe around 60. That time I'm also attending to be a scholars in UCSF, and I'm also talk with the Professor Irving. I think maybe Robert Blum, you know that. 49 in San Francisco, especially in San Francisco is 49, but Thailand is 70. I know many countries is higher than, especially in South Asia or some other countries, maybe in Africa is also higher than teen birth rate. But if we look for the detail, we found that those countries that is higher teen birth rate, or mostly of them is arranged wedding, arranged marriage. And many of countries, they are like their own cultural way. So if you cut off all that kind of own cultural way, or maybe some kind of arranged marriage that for their own style of lifestyle and culture, that means Thai is also some kind of crisis even in the teenage pregnancy. That's why we are talking about the teen topic, and we really get the honorary speaker, both of them, Robert Blum and also Michael. Actually, I know Dr. Blum many years ago. We met in many conferences together, and we have also our sharing. The last, I would like to share two kind of information. The last section, if you remember, I'm not sure, one of our colleagues, maybe we have also adolescent medicine doctor sitting there with Tiraporn. I'm not sure you can remember in the Lancet 2009, Josh Patton from Australia also published his paper about the global mortality rate of young people in 2009. And he mentioned about that the whole, the world mortality rate is, especially for the adolescent health, what is the leading cause of death, especially for female? And what about the percentage in mortality rate of each regional area? 2 million adolescents died every year. And he mentioned about that, especially for 35% of mortality rate comes in South Asia region, that include Thailand. And 28% is from Africa. So if combination about these two regions. That means 2/3 of mortality rate of adolescent health happening in these two regions. That is quite so high. And if we look for the Lancet in the detail, I learned about that. That is also mentioned about the female leading cause of death is according to unsafe sex. And what is the unsafe sex leading cause death to date? That means illegal abortion, perinatal death, or postnatal death, and even HIV death. So this is the main crisis problem now we are talking about. We would like to everyone to sharing our knowledge together, that we are not quite so many people, and we learn that many of us come from many different parts. Some of us is from OBGYN, pediatrician, Bangkok Metropolitan, Thai Health Promotion Foundation, Senate Parliament, Human Security and Social Development, and many else. I cannot remember everybody now, but I think it will be very good to sharing our knowledge together. And I hope, and I'm also convincing that the sharing knowledge of the Robert Bram and also Michael mentioned about the positive parenting system, especially in the school system, is also be very useful. So we can use this kind of conference freely and sharing together. So let me sit down there and a little bit moderate and know each other together. Thank you.
I would like to thank the National Institute for Child and Family Children University and all the Institute officers, colleagues, academic support unit for child and youth development, Thai Health Promotion Foundation, Ministry of Social Development and Human Security, as well as the Committee on Social Development and Children, Youth, Women, the Elderly, the Disabled, and the Underprivileged Affairs from the Senate Office, for joining your hands on the preparation of this fruitful seminar. My special thanks to Dr. Sriyadel Tripathi, Director of the National Institute for Child and Family Development, Mahidol University, who strongly support this valuable seminar and give us an opportunity to obtain a very useful knowledge for better achievement. Thank you very much again, and wish you all a very successful day. Thank you.
We received an honor from Dr. Blum to be with us today to share his expertise on teenage pregnancy. Dr. Blum is a director of Johns Hopkins Urban Health Institute, Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, United States of America. Robert Brown is currently a professor of the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health, Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. In July 2007, Dr. Blum was named the director of the Johns Hopkins Urban Health Institute. He is a past president of the Society for Adolescent Medicine, has served on the American Board of Pediatrics, was a charter member of the Sub-Board of Adolescent Medicine, is a past chair of the Alan Gammacher Institute Board of the Sub-Board of Adolescent Medicine, and served as chair of the National Academy of Science Committee on Adolescent Health and Development. In 2006, the Academy of Science Institute of Medicine elected Dr. Blum into membership. He is a consultant to the World Bank and UNICEF, as well as World Health Organization, where he has served on the technical advisory group of the Child and Adolescent Health Department and the Scientific and Technical Advisory Group of the Human Reproductive Program. Everyone, please.
Good afternoon, and it is a tremendous pleasure and honor for me to be here with you. Let me take a moment and share with you a little bit of background as to what I will be presenting. UNFPA, or the United Nations Population Fund, on an annual basis delivers a State of the World's Population report every October on a different theme and a different issue. This coming fall, this coming October 30th, UNFPA will be releasing a new report on adolescent pregnancy, this year's State of the World Population Report. I had both the honor and opportunity to be a consultant to the development of that report. But the executive director of UNFPA, Dr. Babatunde Asotimehin, decided this year that he wanted to do something different. He wanted also to develop a guidance on what we know about effective programs for adolescent pregnancy prevention around the world. He wanted this to be evidence-based, research-based, and global in its reach. And he asked that I develop this report. It is a report that I submitted 2 days ago. So this is really the first public presentation anywhere in the world on this information. I presented it a couple of days ago to a small group of people at UN agencies here in Bangkok. But this is the first time of sharing it. There is a tremendous amount of data and a tremendous amount of information, and I am not going to throw all of that information out to you. Rather, I am going to provide a framework, I am going to give you some examples, and what I really am hoping is that we can engage in a conversation. The bottom line is, we know a lot about what works for adolescent pregnancy prevention. We have a lot yet to learn. We know a lot. And what I will share with you is some of what we know. So just to frame this, the United Nations Population Fund's vision is that every girl's right, has the right to a safe, healthy, and successful transition from adolescence into adulthood is promoted, respected, and fulfilled. This means that she will grow up unencumbered or not blocked by gender inequality and discrimination, by violence, child marriage, adolescent pregnancy, all of the things that can rob them of their rights and their ability to fulfill their potential. According to UNFPA vision, the adolescent girl will be empowered, educated, healthy, and live in dignity, with the ability to make informed decisions about her future and to exercise her rights, including her reproductive rights. We have a long way to go to even get close to this vision. When we think of affecting change, we think about 6 stakeholder groups that we have called the 6 Ps. They are policymakers at the national level, program managers at a community level, providers And when we think of providers, we're talking about health providers and education providers. And Michael will be talking more from the education side. Parents, peers, and partners. The 6 P's. And I would suggest we know a fair amount about what works, and we know a lot about what doesn't work at every single one of those levels. Before going there, let me just very briefly say that there is tremendous variation by region of the world when it comes to adolescent birth rates, 15 to 19-year-olds, contraceptive prevalence rates, the use of contraception, and child marriage. The proportion of 20 to 24-year-olds who report being married by the age of 18. Overall, approximately 13.1 million adolescents between the ages of 15 and 19 give birth every year. An additional 2.3 million girls under the age of 15 give birth every year. And approximately 3 million abortions are performed in countries where it is illegal as well as legal. And I will touch upon that a little bit later. Most all adolescent pregnancy occurs in marriage. 90% of all adolescents who become pregnant are married at the time they become pregnant. Child marriage is a global issue. Child marriage is a Thai issue. The data are not clear in Thailand. How many young people are married by the age of 18? The range of data goes from about 12% to 19%, somewhere in there. It isn't clear. What is clear is that a significant number of young people are married at an early age. We see a wide variation in terms of adolescent birth rates when we look at South Asia, for example, at 50. When we look at contraceptive prevalence rates, and in Asia and the Pacific, birth rates at 60, prevalence rates of contraceptive prevalence rate of 36. We see wide variation. We also see within each region of the world tremendous variation in adolescent birth rates and in contraceptive use. And in every country of the world, we also know that there is a huge gap between the wealthiest 1/5 of the population and the poorest quintile or 1/5 of the population. In every country of the world, poor girls are far, far more likely to become pregnant. Poor girls are far more likely to be married off at a young age by their parents. The interrelationship between poverty and pregnancy is a worldwide issue. So when we think about effective programs that make a difference We think about programs that are based on certain principles. One is taking a rights-based approach. What we mean by that is that it is important to engage the adolescent as part of the solution. It is important to understand that her voice and also his voice is important as we think about solutions. We need to be clear about the problem that we're working on. Now, this would seem very simple and self-evident, but it is not. Because there are those who are concerned about adolescent sexual behavior from a moral perspective. There are others who are concerned about it because of HIV and AIDS. There are others who are concerned about it because it derails a young girl from her education. And there are others who are concerned about it for a whole range of different reasons. When we come together, we tend to use the same language, but what we are most interested in often is not the same. And we need to be clear about that. We need to be clear who we are focusing on. Are we focusing on adolescent girls, 10 to 20 years of age, or those who are under 18 years of age? Are we focusing on boys as well as girls? What is it that really is the target? And I would suggest, don't forget about boys. Boys, as best as the research shows us, is the way girls become pregnant. They are part of the solution, not just part of the problem. And while adolescent pregnancy and early childbearing disproportionately affects girls, it also affects boys. View adolescents not as problems to be fixed, but as resources to be nourished, because these young people are the future of our countries. Take an evidence-based approach. Well, this is an area where many of us fall very short. We don't take an evidence-based approach. We take an approach of what we think works, what we feel works, what we hope will work. And we spend billions of dollars on programs that have been shown over and over and over again to fail. But the argument that's used is, well, it failed in Malaysia, it failed in Singapore, it failed in Vietnam, but this is Thailand. We're different. Or it failed in Bangkok, and it failed in Phuket, but we're up in Chiang Rai, and we're different. The odds are that if a program has failed in Botswana and Bangladesh and Burma, it will fail here as well. But we keep investing in programs that we know don't work. We also want simple solutions. There was a very famous journalist in the United States many years ago, 50, 70 years ago, H.L. Mencken, who said something that I absolutely love. He said, for every complicated problem, there is a simple solution, and it's usually wrong. We want the simple solution, but it's usually wrong. The most effective programs, as I will talk about in a minute, look at multiple layers, multiple levels of addressing this complicated issue. Be realistic about standards of evidence. Understand that adolescent engagement and involvement is not the end in itself, but is a means of achieving the goal. Think about interventions after the first birth of a child, because there are solutions and interventions that are highly effective that can reduce second births. And we know that young women who are at the highest risk for becoming pregnant and having a baby are those who have already had a child. I'll talk more about that in a moment. We know that this requires a level of commitment at multiple levels of those stakeholders, at the government level, at the community level, at the parent level. There are a number of initiatives that are going on, and national and community level programs are advantaged when it connects in with the post-millennium development goal, or MDG planning, that's going on now, when it connects in with the Global Family Planning 2020 initiative and things of that nature. Need to mobilize and support the formation of partnerships. And this is hard work, because partners have different definitions of what they bring to the table. Engage community elders, and avoid things that sound terrific but don't mean anything. And we tend to talk about all of these issues in vague language that does not translate into concrete change. So the way that we think about effective programs, and I am not going to try to read all of this, it'll put everyone to sleep. But I would like to focus on these 4 bullet points, because as far as I know, there are only 4 ways to reduce adolescent pregnancy. 1 is to delay sexual initiation. If you don't have sexual intercourse, you do not get pregnant. 2 is that if you do have sexual intercourse and you use effective contraception all the time. Now, there are 2 things I just said: effective contraception and all the time. If you use effective contraception all the time, your risk of getting pregnant is very, very, very low. Now, I did say earlier, we need to be clear about the definition of the problem, because there are contraceptive devices that are terrifically good in reducing pregnancy, but are not so good in terms of HIV, and vice versa. And an example is the condom. The condom is very effective for HIV prevention when it's used. It is less effective for pregnancy prevention in the hands of adolescents, about 82% effective. So consistent use of high-quality contraception, reduce marriage before the age of 18. Remember I said that most pregnancy occurs in marriage globally, and reduce coerced or forced sex. Let me make a comment about coerced or forced sex. The reality is we do not know how much gender-based violence contributes to adolescent pregnancy. We suspect that it contributes a fair amount, but we do not know this because the research simply has not been done well enough to be clear. We do know that in adults, it significantly increases the risk of unplanned pregnancy. It increases it by about 1.5 times. And that's research that's been done in the country of Peru, also in the country of Colombia. So 4 things: increase consistent use of contraception, reduce marriage, delay sexual initiation, and reduce coerced sex. So in the analyses that we have done, we have looked at programs around the world, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of programs around the world, and we have come up with a list of a few that are highly effective. By highly effective, they have been well researched and they have been replicated in various countries. Let me tell you about a few of the most effective programs. 3 of the programs that are listed up there. One in Ethiopia, and that is Barani Irwan. One in Mexico, Oportunidades, and one in the United States, the Carrera program, have elements in common. These 3 programs are multi-dimensional or multi-layer programs. These are programs that provide health services for young people, and for particularly adolescent girls. But they do not stop there. 2 is that they each provide education supports for young girls to get to school, stay in school, and be in school. And I will come back to that in a moment. 3, they provide social supports for young people. And these are particularly disadvantaged, poor young people. In each of these different programs and different settings, the impact on staying in school and the impact on early marriage and the impact on adolescent pregnancy is substantial. Oportunidades has been expanded up for the entire country of Mexico. There is a class of programs that have been developed around the world, and these are amongst the most sophisticated of those programs, that are conditional cash transfer programs. A conditional cash transfer program is that I will pay you money, usually money, not always money. I will pay you money if you do certain things. So my giving you support is conditioned on your doing certain things. The number one thing is money that goes to families for their daughters to be in school. The first such conditional cash transfer program was developed in Bangladesh in the early 1990s. And it was a food for education program, and it was very clever. The goal of the program was to get young girls from rural, poor Bangladesh into school. And the government said to families, we will give you a 50 kilo, I think it was 50 kilo, a 50 kilo bag of rice if your daughter is in school, starting in the 6th grade. Starting in the 6th grade. How does my daughter get this bag of rice in the 6th grade? Well, she has to go through the 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade before she gets, or you get, the bag of rice. It had a huge impact on young girls going to school in Bangladesh. In Brazil, another program, Bola Escola, in Brazil, paid families a small amount of money, but paid families for their children to go to school under the pretext that families were keeping their children home to beg on the street, to sell a pencil or a single cigarette, to make some money for the family. They found two things very interesting. One is that it had a tremendous effect on parents. Secondly, they found this was not a poverty alleviation program, because the amount of money that was being provided was so small that it didn't move families out of poverty, but it was enough to keep kids in school. In the country of Malawi, in East Africa, they just found something else very, very interesting. So they had a conditional cash transfer program, and they found it also, much like all of these other countries, that it was very effective in getting girls to stay in school. But they said, we have some other problems as well. We have a problem with commercial sex and transactional sex. We have problems with girls having sugar daddies that are paying for them gifts and stuff for school. And they tried a program of unconditional cash transfer. Again, a small amount of money that said, we will give you a small amount of money. Use it however you want. And a lot of people thought they were crazy to do this. But they found, in fact, that it was extremely effective, not in getting girls into school, but moving them away from commercial sex and transactional sex. Again, the amount of money they got did not offset the money they would have gotten. But it was enough for them to choose not to continue transactional sex. So whether this is an approach that will have tremendous impact elsewhere has yet to be seen. But that is a very promising approach. But the conditional cash transfer programs, we know, do work in terms of getting kids, and particularly girls, into school and keeping them in school. We also know that these multi-level programs also have a substantial impact. I'm sorry, I said Malawi, and it's the Zambia program that I do want to say a couple of words about contraceptive technology as well. So, we know the primary forms of contraception are condoms, birth control pills, injection, Depo-Provera, prayer. But all of these require you do something. Sometimes you have to do it right around the moment you're about to have sex. But there are other forms of contraception that have been around for a while but have been perfected over the last 5 to 7 years that have tremendous promise for adolescents. Some of them are long-term injectable contraception, implants that are a single tube that go in your arm, that's invisible, and that lasts for 5 to 10 years. When you want to have children, you take it out. Well, you don't take it out, someone else takes it out. And within 3 months, normal menstrual cycle returns. 99.9% effective. It almost never fails. Almost never. Another form of contraception is the IUD, or intrauterine device, that now there are forms of IUDs that last 5 years and that are highly, highly, highly effective, way over 99%. Now, an IUD is not going to prevent a sexually transmitted infection. It's not going to prevent HIV, but it does prevent pregnancy. And it is something to be thought about. Now, say, well, these are expensive technologies. And I would suggest yes and no. It depends on the cost to a society for a girl of 14, 16, 17 years of age who has 1 or 2 or 3 children. That is expensive. And compared to that, these technologies are very inexpensive. Where it has been studied, and it has been mostly studied in the United States, it has a very high acceptability rate, much more so than Depo-Provera, for example, which has a continuation rate after 1 year of about 55%. But these technologies have a continuation rate of between 85 and 95% over 1 year. So they're much more accepted by adolescents. So let me try to pull together some of what we have learned. And as I said, I can talk endlessly around specific programs and would be glad to answer questions and really get into a discussion. But some of the things that we've learned. Engaging policymakers at every level is critically important. Now, government policies, by and far, are what we call potentially promising. They're not evidence-based because they've, A, not been very well evaluated, and B, because very often government-level policies are not enforced. So to have policies that set certain requirements but aren't enforced does not mean that they're going to be effective. But policy is a value statement of a government. It says this is important to us. And I would suggest that matters. National strategies to eliminate child marriage and child pregnancy before the age of 18 needs to be a priority. It needs to be a public statement that no child in our country marries by the age of 18. And we have to get rid of the laws that say boys can marry at 18 and girls can marry at 16 or 15 or 14. These gender differentiated categories serve nobody any advantage. Oh, thank you. The multi-sectorial programs that are health and community and education make a difference. At the program manager level, use evidence-based programs. So, examples of ineffective programs. Fear-based programs don't appear to work. Abstinence-only programs don't appear to work. Now let me just say a word about abstinence, because we know factors that contribute to delaying the age at which young girls and boys become sexually active and begin to have intercourse. But they're not abstinence-only programs. School programs that enroll young people in school, keep them in school, and keep them engaged. We know that if someone is in school, they are much less likely to become pregnant. The World Bank estimates that for every grade level after the 7th grade, that a young girl is in school, her risk of pregnancy goes down by 6%. 6% a year, compounded over a 6-year period of time. That's huge. That's a reduction of about 45%. Huge. Use theory-based programs. The Institute here on Child and Family Development has a construct, an understanding for adolescent development, which needs to be the basis for programming. As I said, scare tactics tend not to work. And part of the problem with scare tactics is they often do not line up with reality. Let me give you one example. If you have unprotected sex, you're going to get HIV. Is that true? Are you going to get HIV if you have unprotected sex? Well, if you have it enough times, if you're really unlucky, then it probably is true. But at any given point in time, your risk is very low. with a single episode of intercourse. You have sex, you're going to become pregnant. Well, yeah. At some point, that probably is true. I worked for many years as a clinician, and I would see young girls who would come to my clinic because they were concerned that they were sterile, that they couldn't have children, because they had had sex so many times and they never got pregnant, and they heard if they had sex, they would get pregnant. The information needs to line up with reality. Engage young people in program planning so that they are part of the solution. And information-based programs alone don't work. They don't work. And as much as we like to provide information, information does not in and of itself change behavior. You have to be motivated. And what motivates people are other people. And Michael will talk more about this when she talks about school-based programs. Relationships are key. At the parent level, we know that young people very much need and want parents in their lives. But the truth of the matter is that parents don't feel comfortable. And they need help in being able to communicate more with their adolescent children. We know that the gender messages of what does it mean to be a boy or a girl, of how a boy is supposed to treat a girl, and vice versa, starts at home. And awareness around that matters. We know that parents who expect their children to stay in school and graduate have children who tend to stay in school and graduate and are less involved with early sexual behaviors. And as I said before, poverty and pregnancy are closely intertwined. And if we can even modestly alleviate poverty, it has an impact. For teachers, school is highly protective for young people. Getting kids in school and keeping them in school makes a huge difference, even when the schools are not very good. It is better to be in a good school, obviously, but even where it is not very good, it makes a difference. Conditional cash transfer programs, as I talked about, and there are life skills programs that have an evidence base of being effective. Let me say a word about youth-friendly health services, because in many places there has been a tremendous investment in youth-friendly health services. There have been 3 evaluations of youth-friendly health services in Tanzania, in Malawi. I just blanked on the 3rd. In each of those China. In each of those evaluations, building youth-friendly health services alone does not increase utilization. If you have a notion, build it. These clinical services, and young people will come. It isn't true. Community level commitment matters. Political will matters. A community environment where it says in our community it is legitimate and appropriate for young people who are having sex to contracept increases utilization. political will does make a difference in clinic utilization. We have insufficient programs that reach married adolescents. An example of one that includes married adolescents is Barani 1 in Ethiopia. There's one in Egypt. There's one in India as well. I mentioned, and I would only repeat, long-acting reversible contraception, or what is known as LARCs. Those kinds of contraception that last for 5 to 10 years clearly make a difference. There are programs that address gender norms that are aimed at adolescent males. A very good example is one out of Brazil by Promundo. It's been replicated in Mumbai in India. You can affect adolescent male gender attitudes, and this was done among very low-income populations. There is evidence that comprehensive sex education curricula do make a difference. The problem with them, much like the problem with life skills, is that so much falls under that umbrella and so many of the programs that are called life skills training aren't very evidence-based. So in summary, we know quite a fair amount of what works, from the policymaker to the community level program planner to the parent and the provider and peers and partners. We need to build our interventions on what works, but we also need to be willing to move into new directions. There is very little work, for example, with 10 to 14-year-olds, and we need to be able to address that population, not because so many of them are sexually active, but the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that they acquire as they move into their adolescent years will drive their behaviors subsequently. So that makes a difference. We need to expand our work for married adolescents. We need to build our strategies to engage young people in school, because we know that it makes a difference. The problems are huge. There isn't a country in the world that isn't heavily impacted by early adolescent childbearing. But we know some of the things that makes a difference. It's now our job to put them into place. Thank you very much. How do you want to handle, should Michael present and then we have a discussion? How do you want to handle the question and discussion period?
I'm not sure our colleague, we have any kind of question. If we have maybe a couple of questions, 2 or 3 questions, and then go to the Michael and Michael. Dr. Tina.
Very fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for coming. I have a question on the effectiveness of the prevention program. Do you have any idea about free service? Accessibility to the free service, is that impact on the teenage pregnancy prevention?
Yes, so let me speak about free services in a few ways. One is if you talk about health services, the financial cost, how many baht I have to pay, is only one of the costs. So yes, eliminating that, having to pay money, reduces one barrier. But it's not sufficient because there are many other barriers beside money that will keep me from using the clinic, the clinical service. So embarrassment will keep me. A fear that my parents are going to find out if the values of the community don't say it is acceptable will keep me from using those services. There are so many things that are also barriers. So when we think about eliminating those barriers, we need to think about doing that. A very creative program is one that is done in Nicaragua, and it hasn't yet been replicated. But it gives young people vouchers. Now this is interesting because the clinic service in Nicaragua is free. It's free. You don't need a voucher. But it gives you a voucher. And it says, this voucher is good for a 3-month visit. Now, if you don't need it in 3 months, for 3 months, give it to a friend. So she or he can have it and they can use it. They have found simply doing that increased utilization. I thought very interesting. And there is a whole psychology, which I won't get into, about why things like that work. But it falls under nudge theory. Let me also speak about education. So eliminating the cost of education is also eliminating one barrier. But that's only one of so many barriers, particularly for poor families. So uniforms might be another. Well, eliminating the cost for uniforms does make a difference, and this has been shown, for example, in Kenya. But that's also only one cost. But then you have transportation costs of getting there. You have time costs for a parent. If there's no secondary education and I have to go 50 kilometers to a secondary school, how do I do that in a rural community? So again, the out-of-pocket costs are only part of the total costs.
Sorry, maybe my question is quite unclear. I mean, free service of the contraceptions. Like in the United States, you can get all contraception for free in adolescents, but in Thailand, they still need to pay.
So, again, yes, providing contraception at no cost reduces one barrier. But again, that's only one of the barriers, of which there are a number. And part of the barrier is having to come back every month, every 3 months, to get new contraception. Or you say, well, emergency contraception. Emergency contraception at an individual level is terrific if it's used. But for the same reason that people need emergency contraception, they tend not to use it every time they fail to use regular contraception. It's a bit of a catch-22, if you will. So yes, eliminating costs, the financial cost for purchasing, is a step forward. But I would really encourage thinking about what are all of the costs and how do we deal with all of the costs and not just the actual out-of-pocket costs, which are part of the issue.
Is there any question? Let me ask you about, I have one. We have adolescent friendly health service in all medical college and also from Department of Health medical services. I think maybe the big hospital, they have all adolescent clinic, and we simply use the confidentiality sentences we use for the clinic. But we have some kind of obstacle. We try to set up some kind of confidentiality law or maybe some kind of principle. Do you need, or is it maybe some kind of barrier, or such as even we are facing a little bit obstacle for HIV without parent consent. There's still no any kind of announcement or any kind of such as commitment to let the adolescent have convincing they can get the HIV checkup. So what do you think? We use the confidentiality sentence. Do we need for the confidentiality law or principle too?
So, common wisdom says that confidentiality is one of the cornerstones for the provision of adolescent services. I think that part of the problem, and particularly for those who live and work in small communities, is that I can say that my policy is confidential, but if I am an adolescent and I know that you are a provider who knows my mother, sister, or my cousin, I don't know that the law is going to matter so much. Now, one of the things we do know, the surest way to lose a young person is for them to find out that something they told you, you told to someone else. That is just the kiss of death. So I think that, again, laws are often a statement of values of a government. And I think the message that we value you as an individual and you should feel free to come and share with health professionals issues of concern is a very positive statement. How much that translates, I really can't comment. Don't know. I would say that there are not a lot of terrifically good programs targeted at those who are 12 to 15 years of age. One that is specifically targeted to that age group, however, is the Ethiopia program, Baranier 1. And that program, because it has multiple components, so there is this conditional cash transfer program. There it actually is, if you stay in school for 2 years, you get a goat, because a goat is highly prized. But it also has a whole social support program for young girls. It has skills training, not just life skills, but vocational skills. So you have a school program, a health program, an education, and a social support program. And those taken together, the evidence is strong that it does make a difference, a very significant difference. And now they're taking that program and scaling it up. They're repeating it in Kenya, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And so it looks very promising. But I would suggest that's an age group that we really need to pay attention to. You're 100% right. The answer is no and yes. The no is that self-efficacy is a psychological construct, and it's somewhat vague. So the programs that have worked at that level tend not to have had great impact. Now, you say, okay, but what is self-efficacy? If I have vocational skills, I have self-efficacy. If I have education, it increases my self-efficacy. if I have skills to voice my needs, I have self-efficacy. So the programs that seem to have an impact on self-efficacy aren't at that level. They are skill-building programs, vocational skill-building programs, employment skill-building, life skill programs, etc. And there are a set of programs that do work. And I would suggest they are also the ones that build these other psychological components, if that makes sense.
Okay. So thank you so much for Bram, and we are going to have to the second section.
And we also have another oral guest today, Dr. Lynn Michael Blum. Dr. Blum has a child and adolescent clinical psychologist for 40 years. She had a private practice specializing in evaluation and therapy. In addition to her private practice, she holds a position of adjunct assistant professor in the Department of Mental Health in the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, where she teaches the graduate course on children's growth and development. Dr. Brown is also a co-coordinator of the Military Child Initiative in the School of Public Health. She created and teaches the online graduate course entitled Building Resilient Kids. Dr. Brown has already consulted with the military in high school regarding programs that focus on building student resilience and school connectedness and engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Blum.
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting us, and we feel so fortunate that so many of you speak English, and we wish that we could speak Thai. However, I'm afraid we follow the American path of not being multilingual. I'd like to speak today about parent involvement in schools. What we're going to do by the end of our session is review the need for partnerships between school and home, discuss the importance of partnerships in terms of academic, emotional, and behavioral outcome for students, explain a best practice program, Joyce Epstein's 5 types of parent involvement in schools, review the challenges and potential solutions to involving parents in school partnerships, and finally examine the essential elements of a successful program. Why involve parents in schools? Bob touched on this. The best inoculation and prevention program against all risk behaviors of adolescents is keeping kids in school. Students are influenced by many people. Educators recognize they constitute only one sphere of influence in students' lives. Years of research into partnership programs have revealed that family and schools have a powerful impact on student success. It no longer is satisfactory for schools to be alone, teaching our children to think. They can teach children to memorize, but really, the collaboration between family and teachers teaches kids to think. When school and families partner, the child realizes education is important. The family becomes a part of the school, and school becomes a part of the family. Well, parent involvement has been described in U.S. federal, state, and local laws for many, many years. The No Child Left Behind Act specifies several requirements for schools, district, and state level leadership, and school, family, and community partnership programs that must be satisfied for schools to qualify for and get funding from the government. School districts that receive government funds are required to spend at least 1% on parental involvement programs in schools, with 95% of those funds focused on school-level programs and practices. In other words, our schools are reimbursed for parent involvement programs required by law. There has been over 60 studies emphasizing and showing that parent involvement makes a significant difference in children's academic lives. Parent support and value for education are consistent predictors of students' academic achievement, particularly grades. When parents become involved in schools, students show a particular study drove home the point that students show improved behavior at home and at school. So parent involvement in this study resulted in better social skills and adaptation to school, greater self-confidence, self-efficacy, and less disruptive behavior, particularly at home. Students with involved parents are more likely to adjust to school, to take part in class, and feel they belong and fit in. School engagement increases, and as I said, the engagement in school, keeping kids in school until they graduate, is very, very essential prevention strategy against risk behaviors. One study focused on teachers reaching out to kids, to parents. The greater the outreach, the higher the reading and math scores. And the form of outreach was teachers reaching out to low-income students through frequent parent contacts and through giving homework directions to parents. And in schools with the greatest outreach, students' test scores were 40% higher than in schools where teachers reported low levels of outreach. So having those teachers out there contacting those parents on a regular basis made the difference in those students' grades. There have been a number of longitudinal studies that have shown parent impact, parent involvement and partnership in elementary school with younger kids has long-lasting, long-reaching effects when kids are older. Parent-school partnerships have lasting effects on student success, and these studies have demonstrated impact regardless of the family's class, race, ethnicity, gender, or age. For example, Katsambas studied 13,500 families whose children stayed in school through 12th grade and found that enhancing learning at home through parent involvement and homework had the strongest effect on student achievement. And a longitudinal study of 25,000 8th graders indicated that parent involvement, increased communication with school, and support influenced students' expectations regarding their ability to finish college 6 years after the parent involvement program. How do we impact? How do we create those partnerships? I'd like to turn now to discuss a best practice program that evolved from a center at Johns Hopkins, the Center on School, Family, and Community Partnerships. Dr. Joyce Epstein, the head of this program, has identified a framework of 5 types of parent involvement that are necessary to help schools establish a comprehensive partnership program. This is the website for the Center on School, Family, and Community Partnerships. What are those 5 types of involvement? Parent education, school-home communication, volunteering, learning at home, involving parents in decision-making. As I go through these, I'm going to ask you all if any of your children's schools, first of all, how many people are parents here? If you could just raise your hands. Parents? Well, think back to your own education then. And I'll ask you whether or not your schools involve parents, your parents, in these ways. Let's talk about each one of these types of involvement. I'd like to say a word. We know Dr. Liu has a very effective team program, and Dr. Epstein also has community involvement and team membership, but I'm just focusing on her 5 types of school parent partnerships today. The first type of parent involvement, and I'm hoping that you all will carry this back to your school districts and promote these ideas in your schools. The goal is basically parent education. Why? When you think about the fact that we're looking to parents to help schools teach children how to think, parents, first of all, need education. Parents need to understand that children think at different developmental stages. So we need to offer training to parents and parenting skills in terms of how to promote education for their children, to increase home conditions that support children's learning. And reaching out to those parents also assists schools in how, because schools can then better understand the families they're working with. More specifically, teach parents appropriate expectations at each grade, age, and developmental stage. At lunchtime, we were, the senator and we were discussing the fact that it is a very old-fashioned tradition, or a very conservative idea, to think of children as just small adults. And schools are there to kind of fill up, pour knowledge into the empty vessel of the child so that they can assume their position as adults. But in fact, what we know through research is that children think differently than adults, and we need to help parents understand how to address their children at each particular developmental stage in order to teach that child to make the most of their thinking ability at each stage. Why else educate parents? Because they are our health support system. They have to understand how health and nutrition make kids' brains grow. So the senator was also talking about the concern about bringing up the IQ level in remote areas. And parents parents need to become aware of the nutrition that is needed to help those children's brains grow and prosper. Not only how to address them at their appropriate developmental stages. Basically, we're teaching parents to teach problem-solving skills to kids, to teach them to be thinking problem solvers. Schools can offer parent training, offer parent workshops on how parents can help their children cope with challenges. And challenges can range from study skills to pregnancy prevention. And education in many schools goes beyond the school walls. Some schools, in the United States at least, take on the responsibility of even providing higher level education courses for parents, or helping parents get into higher level, higher education programs themselves. So let me just ask you, can I see a show of hands? How many of your own schools involve parents in training, offering parent training programs, or parent education programs? Or parent workshops to help parents understand parenting skills? Aha. Some schools. Interesting. What form did that take in your school? I don't have a translation of that. Or can someone just translate that for me?
ค่ะก็มาจากองค์การแพทย์นะคะทำเกี่ยวกับโครงการอบรมการสื่อสารระหว่างพ่อแม่ผู้ปกครองให้กับวัยรุ่นนะคะในเรื่องของการทำความเข้าใจการอยู่ร่วมกันนะคะแล้วก็ให้คุยกันได้ทุกเรื่องเปิดใจรวมทั้งเรื่องเพศด้วยนะคะก็จะเป็นเรื่องที่ทำให้เรื่องเพศเป็นเรื่องธรรมชาตินะคะที่สามารถจะให้คำปรึกษาลูกได้แล้วก็คุยกับลูกได้นะคะโดยเฉพาะอันนี้จะเน้นในเรื่องของการป้องกันนะคะก็คือว่าทำยังไงเราจะเป็นเพื่อนกับเขาจับสัญญาณได้ก่อนที่เขาจะมีปัญหานะคะแล้วก็เวลาที่จะมีเรื่องอะไรขึ้นมาเนี่ยค่ะก็สามารถจะแก้ปัญหาได้ทันนะคะก็เป็นเพื่อนกับลูกแล้วก็สนใจเรียนรู้กับลูกทุกอย่างเนี่ยค่ะทำยังไงให้พ่อแม่มีความเข้าใจในบทบาทตัวเองนะคะแล้วก็อย่างที่เมื่อสักครู่พูดไปค่ะทำยังไงให้พ่อแม่เข้าใจว่าช่วงวัยรุ่นนิสัยเขาจะเป็นยังไงพฤติกรรมเขาจะเป็นยังไงเรื่องของฮอร์โมนธรรมชาติร่างกายเปลี่ยนแปลงอย่างไรนะคะถ้าพ่อแม่เข้าใจแบบนี้แล้วก็ย้อนกลับไปในสมัยตัวเองเป็นวัยรุ่นนะคะก็จะนึกถึงว่าเวลาเราเป็นวัยรุ่นเราก็อยากเป็นแบบที่เขาเป็นเราก็มีนิสัยคล้ายๆที่เขาเป็นอยู่แต่ว่าสังคมทุกวันนี้มันเปลี่ยนไปนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยการที่ทำให้เขาเข้าใจและอยู่ในสังคมได้นะคะก็จะต้องเป็นบทบาทหนึ่งของพ่อแม่นะคะอันนี้ก็มีการอบรมให้กับเขาเรียกว่าวิทยากรที่อยู่ในจังหวัดนะคะแล้วก็ประมาณ30 คนนะคะเป็นกิจกรรมที่เป็นเวิร์กช็อปแล้วก็วิทยากรจังหวัดนะคะก็จะไปอบรมต่อให้กับชุมชนที่รวมกลุ่มได้30 คนนะคะอันนี้ก็จะเป็นโครงการของทางองค์การแพทย์ค่ะขอบคุณค่ะ
And Michael, I would like to add some more information. I know you
Please
get
do.
all, yeah. So some more information about the PATH. PATH is doing about the sex comprehensive sex education. I think maybe more than 30 years, right? 20 or 30 years. 29 years. It's nearly 30 years, and the organization have a really expert about how to talk with teens, especially about the sex education. Especially PATH also opened the Love Care Station Clinic. I think maybe 9 provinces you are doing in separately in many parts of Thailand. Many provinces do the Love Care Station Clinic. And also collaboration with the school, such as she mentioned about. And I would like to add some more information. Me also do some kind of project together, life asset. That is also called life skill and mindfulness combination with how to talk with teens about sex. And we also learn about that is not only let them learn about how to say no, but have to lift up about the mindfulness too. So this is I'm not sure that it's all about the PATH doing or not, but maybe it's quite a lot more.
That's excellent. And thinking about the power of the school in joining with health services so that kids realize when their parents and the health service professionals and their school teachers, who they respect highly, come together, it has terrific impact to say, this information is of value. You're bringing together all of the spheres of influence in the child's life. And that's fabulous. The next type of involvement in Epstein's program is communicating. You can't do any of the other ways of parent involvement without increasing communication skills. I always feel that schools need a good public relations specialist. So the goal of this type of parenting is increase effective communications from school to home and from home to school about school programs and student progress. In order to involve parents in their child's school lives, teachers and school staff have to become effective communicators. So at the beginning of the year, provide information on all school policies, programs, changes from the previous year. Review the classroom work and behavior expectations of parents at the beginning of the year so parents can reinforce them at home. I'm an old school psychologist working for 15 years at the beginning of my career in schools. And it is very effective when teachers say, we expect appropriate behavior, good discipline in our schools, and we support you as parents to drive home those same behaviors at home. So what are communication building strategies? Well, in schools where I've taught communication skills, I drive home the 3 points, the 3 timelines. Monthly communications through newsletters, weekly communications through sending work home in folders and a notebook that can be passed back and forth. And in the case of a child who's having more significant problems, the teacher may need to use a daily notebook that goes back and forth to school, to the family. And in that way, and also using email, of course, if that's available. I know lower income families often don't have computers, but email is being used almost exclusively in American schools now between teachers and parents. And venues for communicating. There is no reason at this time in the digital world that schools cannot communicate with parents through videotapes, computerized phone messages. Some schools will send home the vocabulary word of the day on a phone message. Home visits, neighborhood meetings. I know one school principal who would set up a little booth in the local shopping center, and it would say, meet your principal, and he would be there to answer questions of parents. Workshops on parenting skills, brown bag lunches. That's where everybody brings their lunch in a brown bag with the school counselor. Monthly meetings with the principal at times when working parents can attend. And don't forget the goal-setting conference. I don't know if you all have parent-teacher conferences here in the schools, but instead of just being a conference where you review whether or not Johnny had good attendance and how many tests he took, but actually to say, I spoke to Johnny before this conference and we set a goal, and Johnny and I would like to work on this goal until we meet again in the spring. So a goal is set at the parent conference. The parents are asked to follow through at home with ways of supporting that goal. Give out the student report card beforehand so it doesn't have to be the focus of the conference, but it can be reviewed. So which of your schools have innovative ways of communicating with parents? Did you have your hand raised?
My kids learning in Satijula, that is also, we have almost always, all the time, have communication together. It's not only between the parents, it's also including with the teacher. It's like a parent, teacher, and student, like a three-corner meeting together and communicating together.
Any other interesting ways that your schools have communicated with your families? Snail mail letters, not so effective. Oh, a personal note.
Generally, they send the letter not email, not chat messages,
One of the most effective forms of communication that Bob and I ever received from a teacher was about our son. And our son was extremely naughty when he was younger. He's now a pediatrician, trying to teach other parents how to raise their children. But we got a phone call from his third grade teacher at the very beginning of the year. And I was fearful when I answered the phone and I heard her voice, to worry about what she was going to be saying. And she called within the first 2 weeks of school, and I thought, this is terrible. He's already acting that badly. It's only 2 weeks of school. And she said, I'm just calling to tell you how glad I am that Alex is in my class. And I was shocked, but I was thrilled. That teacher could have asked me for anything after that, and I would have gladly come in, volunteered, done anything to help my child in school. That positive phone call at the beginning of the school year is a very effective strategy for gaining parent involvement in school.
Michael, here in Thailand, we have parent-teacher association in every school. And each level, they have also network together in the whole school. I mean, they have selected to be in each level, such as grade 1 to grade 12, and they're gathering to be like a parent-teacher association of the school and have connection, communication together.
Good. Okay, the third type of involvement is volunteering. Volunteering sounds like you want a parent to come in and do all of your paperwork for you because you don't want to take the time as a teacher to do it. However, volunteering has a very important role in terms of parent engagement in the school. If you're going to engage kids, you need to engage their parents. Having parents come into the school or be involved somehow on a concrete level with their children's education is a strong engagement strategy. So organizing parent volunteer groups to support the school and the students is the goal of parent volunteering. And volunteer opportunities have to be at many times. You can send out an annual postcard or an online survey to survey parents about their talent, what their availability, what their type of preference for volunteering might be. There's a mutual benefit between school and volunteers because volunteering benefits both the parent and the school. To improve volunteer recruitment, schools must offer training and volunteer opportunities that accommodate parents' schedules. In the United States, it is uncommon for parents to be at home. Almost everyone is working during the day. And any kind of volunteer opportunities and engagement of parents has to be in the evening or before school, usually around 7 o'clock in the morning. School can be a home for parents. I've worked in a number of schools that have a parent room, and it becomes, now that we don't have anything like the corner coffee shop anymore where parents in the town gather together, they come to the school as a community center in many villages. So reserving a room in the school as a family center, a place for volunteer work, a place for parents to come gather, that engages parents. Parents will increase their school engagement and support if they feel they're meeting other parents in the parenting community. How do we look for volunteers? Well, of course, there is the clerical help for paperwork. Parent patrols to enhance the safety and operation of school programs. Having parents come in to read to the class. Having parents come in to speak about their jobs as role models on job day. The fourth type of parenting is learning at home. This is the trickiest type of parenting. This is perhaps the most important in terms of helping parents teach their children how to think. Schools are now too crowded and there are too many students for teachers to really be teaching problem-solving skills. This is an extremely important role for parents to have. Therefore, involving families with their children's homework and other curriculum-related activities and decisions is the type of parent homework I'm talking about. A very effective way you have to train parents to do this, and an effective way of training them is videotapes starring the school students, parents, and educators to inform students and their families about ways to help their students. Teachers can provide homework packets with directions and ideas about how to get involved in their children's academic learning activities at home. A prime example would be information packets, which instruct parents on how to help with homework assignments and other curriculum-related activities. Provide families with information on the skills required for students in all subjects. So again, you have to combine. provide families with information on homework policies, and how to monitor and discuss homework at home, inform parents of how to assist students and improve their scores on class and school assignments. Assign homework that requires students to interact with their families and discuss what they're learning, such as interviewing the parent. Create problem-solving packets for homework assignments with the goal of parents and students working together in problem-solving skills. And along with this, year-round activities. I've worked with some teachers who created a calendar with an activity for every day, some kind of a simple puzzle that the parent can have the child solve. Or learning packets or activities for students and parents to complete over the summer. And the fifth type of parent involvement is involving parents in decision making. And this is what Dr. Diu was talking about in terms of the Parent-Teacher Association, the PTA. But I would suggest that the schools could actually create an action team for partnerships, a committee of the PTA or the school council to allow parents a voice in school policy, such as improvement in school policies. Parents should be included from all backgrounds and levels of expertise, all neighborhoods, not just the wealthiest community members. Structuring the PTA, the Parent-Teacher Association, for decision making. A lot of PTAs are making minor decisions, but in the Epstein model, PTAs are a forum where parents can make major decisions on textbook choices, on regulations in the school, and that type of thing. And the PTA can be another effective way of linking parents together through parent representatives. So what are some of the challenges to parent? Oh, I wanted to ask you all again. What are some interesting ways, have parents been involved in your schools in making major decisions in the school, or is that something that's strictly limited to school authorities? It sounds like it's limited to the school authorities.
Yeah, you're talking about the homework, that is really really great issue. But here we have a huge of homework. And we found that with the limitation of the family time, I think maybe it is because of the most of family is going to have a low socioeconomic and they have to go outside with the limitation of time. So sometimes with the huge of homework, they do by themselves. They not only learning and discussion with the student. This kind of homework parents do, and this kind of homework students do, like a help to do all the homework to be finished to send the other day, And the other issue is we are also, even we have a parent-teacher association, and we are trying to do like a family and teacher and student learning together. But the problem, the obstacle is family have a low technique. Even maybe some of teacher has low technique how to talk with their student. Like an open or group discussion is not by doing everything or by compulsive way or by some kind of dictator. You are talking about like a teacher connectedness or parental connectedness, but it's quite an obstacle. We are trying to let the teacher to have the function of facilitator, or maybe some kind of parent also will know how to parenting style like a facilitator, but here is a little bit obstacle to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's talk about some challenges. You were bringing up some challenges. One of the challenges is the rush, the lack of freedom of schedule, and figuring out when to get parents in because of everyone's very busy schedule. How do you present information? And if you do it in a very organized way, you can help parents who are working parents through videotaping workshops, summarizing workshop information on websites, or having conference call-ins if the school has a conference phone system. A very big problem getting parents in is they feel their parenting skills are being judged. And they may feel they couldn't possibly have adequate information to be able to communicate with school staff. So they may be reluctant to come to school or to come to parenting workshops or training workshops. And a solution to that is encouraging parents to realize that a workshop is for parents of all levels, not just a certain level of expertise, for beginners and for veterans. Another challenge may be parents feel the communication about their child is too negative. As I mentioned, that beginning of the year phone call or the beginning of the year communication lays down a foundation that provides a positive foundation for the rest of the school year. Students are often not reliable messengers, and you had mentioned sending snail mail home. I'm afraid that I've heard too many stories of kids intercepting mail so their parents don't get it from the Dropbox. It's very interesting how those letters disappear. And I think that we now are in the era of being able to use email and phone calls and websites and lots of other ways of communicating with parents besides snail mail. A very big problem of bringing parents together as partners in schools is that I think often teachers use jargon and school staff use jargon that alienates parents. And this really drives home the fact that school staff need education on how to communicate with parents. I don't know if you have ever noticed, but the more complicated language is used, it often is concealing the fact that the teacher just doesn't know how to communicate with the parent in simple language. And that skill has to be taught. Parents want to support, they want to volunteer, but they can't come in during the school day. And again, in this era of internet, parents can volunteer at home. Parents can provide services at home, gathering materials for the young children's projects. I know some parents who actually have graded papers for teachers, not papers requiring judgment, but math calculation types of papers. The biggest challenge that Dr. Dew was talking about was how can parents have the time to do homework with students. The Epstein program has come up with something called TIPS, Teachers Involve Parents in Schoolwork. It is a program available through the National Network of Partnership Schools. I believe it's talked about in the website, where they're actually interactive examples of homework that parents can do with children that teach children thinking and problem-solving skills. And I know that when Dr. Epstein actually consults with the school district, she actually goes in and analyzes the school's homework assignments and creates the homework assignment packages for the teachers. I'd like to bring up the topic of the helicopter parent. Do you have that expression? The helicopter parent wants to assume the teacher role. They want their child to get into the best college, be the smartest child in the class, know more than the teacher. I would say the helicopter parent is the biggest nuisance or the most feared by most teachers because they're too demanding and too perfectionistic. But actually, the It doesn't sound like you use that expression. We know a lot of helicopter parents in the United States. The beauty of this type of program, where the school actually organizes problem-solving activities between parents and kids, is it limits what the helicopter parent can do. It gives them, the goal is to give them specific directions so they don't go outside of those boundaries, but they stick with the assignment that has been given to them to do with the child. The other beauty of this type of parent involvement is you're actually asking the parents to teach the kids why. You're asking the parents to teach the kids how to think. And usually helicopter parents don't just want their kids to memorize the information, they want their kids to understand more about learning. So you're actually teaching those parents how to be more effective problem solvers with their kids. The last problem is, in many schools in the States, and I don't know if it's true here, the PTA tends to be the more, and you can tell me if this is not the case here, the elite families, the families with power, the parents with money, they're the ones who are sitting on the decision-making boards. And I see some nodding of heads, so perhaps that's a universal problem where parents get involved in decision-making in schools. It's the goal of this type of program to really reach out to parents from every neighborhood so that there are roles that every parent can play in decision-making and not just relegating that role to the wealthiest and most influential parents. What are the essential elements of successful parent programs? You can encourage schools to have these programs, but there has to be buy-in from the top. If you are in a decision-making role in the community, I would encourage you to consider having the school on a school-wide or a district-wide basis create parent involvement programs, because a well-structured, goal-directed program has to be based on a buy-in from the top leadership in the school district. And there has to be buy-in at the school level. So not only does the district level have to agree, but the school principal needs to say, I value parents' involvement. I'm asking every teacher to develop activities for parents to do at home. I'm asking every teacher to come up with volunteer roles for parents. I'm going to train teachers in how to work with parents. It is very helpful if the school has a parent coordinator, someone who actually has this responsibility at the school level. That means funding for such a job. In-service training is needed for teachers because teachers don't necessarily know how to communicate with parents effectively. Teachers need ongoing support and training in working with parents. Working with families and parents, bringing them in at this level opens a whole can of worms, and you have to be willing to support teachers in reaching out to those parents. And finally, a partnership program that is a well-structured, thoughtful program needs more than 1 year. As most best practice programs have demonstrated, they need at least 2 to 3 years to demonstrate efficacy. So I'd like to thank you very much and open this up for questions.
Thank you. You mentioned about the helicopter parent, and I think about rocket parent. It's extremely high expectation and also a huge limitation of time, and also helps the student to be over and over, such as they have almost always think about only learn, tuition. It's not only in the school system, even in the after-school program, they also try to let the students to go to the tuition school. That is, I think maybe that I mentioned about, we are talking before, that here we learn, maybe we spend, the student here spend the time 2 or 3 times more than such as in the United States. So do you have any kind of question? ถามเป็นภาษาไทยก็ได้นะครับเชื่อเลยนะครับ
ค่ะอยากจะสอบถามว่าจะมีวิธีอะไรที่จะช่วยแนะนำไหมคะว่าถ้าเกิดว่าพ่อแม่ของไทยอะค่ะอาจจะมีหลายระดับนะคะมีทั้งระดับสูงที่มีการศึกษานะคะอาจจะเป็นลักษณะที่ว่าเนี่ยค่ะเป็นเฮลิคอปเตอร์พาเลนนะคะแล้วก็มีระดับกลางนะคะที่ร่วมบ้างไม่ร่วมบ้างส่วนระดับล่างอะค่ะก็คือชวนยังไงเชิญยังไงทำยังไงก็ไม่ค่อยมาค่ะนะคะถึงแม้ลูกจะมีปัญหาก็ยังไม่ค่อยมานะคะก็คือยังไม่เห็นความสำคัญของการที่จะมามีส่วนร่วมกับโรงเรียนนะคะรวมทั้งเรื่องเศรษฐกิจก็คืออาจจะพูดว่าต้องทำมาหากินนะคะในช่วงเวลาที่คุณครูหรือว่าทางโรงเรียนต้องการเวลาที่จะมาให้มีส่วนร่วมค่ะถามว่ามีวิธีอะไรหรือว่ามีโครงการอะไรที่มีลักษณะว่าชวนแล้วไม่ค่อยมาค่ะมีอะไรดีๆที่จะช่วยแลกเปลี่ยนไหมคะขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you. I think that there has to be a focus from the school leaders on educating parents in terms of how important they are in their children's education. I've never met a parent who didn't care about their child. Perhaps there are some, but I haven't had the misfortune of meeting them. They want to do what's best for their children, and explaining to the parent that they're an important partner in education, I think requires an initiative on the part of the school and a real outreach, a real public relations outreach, and market the program to families so they realize there's something at every level for every parent to help their children's education. And maybe it would be looking down from the 10,000 feet for some parents where you're saying, we're educating the future workforce of this country. And you are a valuable part of that education. Or it might be at the ground level, where, looking up from the 0 level, saying, if you want your child to have all positive things happen, it's important for your child to stay in school, and you are an important part of that project. So I think what it really requires is for the district to do an initiative, to really carry out an initiative to let parents know how essential they are in having good things happen for their children.
Allow me to speak in Thai. Got that. ก็นี่อยากจะแชร์กับทางหมายถึงว่าแสดงความคิดเห็นร่วมนะคะในเรื่องของการที่จะทำให้ผู้ปกครองเข้ามามีส่วนร่วมกับทางโรงเรียนเรื่องของการศึกษาของบุตรหลานเนี่ยส่วนที่เป็นที่สักครู่จากองค์กรแพทย์เนี่ยพูดถึงเนี่ยก็คือเรารู้สึกว่าผู้ปกครองของครอบครัวที่ยากไร้เนี่ยนะหรือครอบครัวคนจนเนี่ยน่าจะมีปัญหามากที่สุดในการมีส่วนร่วมดังนั้นเนี่ยถ้าเราจะมีโปรแกรมจะเป็น initiative โปรแกรมหรืออะไรก็ได้ที่สักครู่เราได้ฟังดร.โรเบิร์ตนะฮะขออนุญาตที่ชื่อต้นเนี่ยคือพูดถึงถ้าผู้ปกครองส่งลูกไปโรงเรียนในชั้นประถม6ก็จะได้ข้าวกลับมาบ้านใช่ไหมฮะได้อะไรกลับมาบ้านเนี่ยอันนั้นเฉพาะครอบครัวคนยากจนในทางกลับกันนี้คิดว่าอาจจะใช้กลยุทธ์นี้กับผู้ปกครองถ้าผู้ปกครองเนี่ยเข้ามามีส่วนร่วมกับโรงเรียนเนี่ยผู้ปกครองอาจจะได้ประโยชน์อะไรด้วยนะนี่อาจจะเป็นการดึงผู้ปกครองเข้ามาเพราะว่าแน่นอนแหละความจำเป็นในการที่จะไม่มีเวลาด้วยอะไรด้วยและไม่เห็นความสำคัญด้วยก็อยากจะสำหรับประเทศในแถบเอเชียนะฮะทางด้านตะวันออกเนี่ยอาจจะต้องมีเรียกว่า incentive โปรแกรมแบบนี้กับผู้ปกครอง จะดีหรือไม่นะถามท่านวิทยากรนะคะ
Well, there's a they call it the PTA motto, the Parent Teacher Association motto. It's if you feed them, they will come. And that is that if you want to give a parent training program, you have to have quite a nice dinner for them in order for them to come. And if it's 6 sessions, you better have 6 very nice dinners. But I think that you're absolutely right. Offering some kind of financial incentive to parents to be involved. We do that with our in professional fields. We offer a reward through offering continuing education credits or higher education credits or whatever. We need to reward people if they're going to do something they don't normally do.
Before going to Dr. Chitapa, I would like to ask Ajahn Tenpan. We ever heard about the cash transfer that is our council also discuss about, but I'm not sure what is going now. Will this be still on process or not? And it might be served this kind of idea.
น่าจะอยู่ระหว่างการตัดสินใจนะคะหมอเพราะว่าหลังจากที่ไปดูงานที่แอฟริกากลับมาแล้วก็มีการประชุมระหว่างสภาพัฒน์แล้วก็ภาคีเครือข่ายและยูนิเซฟเนี่ยเข้าใจว่าณขณะนี้อยู่ระหว่างการประชุมเรื่องในกลุ่มของภาคีที่เป็นกลุ่ม NGO นะคะคงจะหาข้อสรุปแต่ประเด็นก็คือว่าถ้าเราจะทำเรื่องนี้เนี่ยมันก็จะมีข้อเสนอนะคะหรือว่ามีประโยชน์มากน้อยแค่ไหนทำได้มากน้อยแค่ไหนทำแบบถ้าจะซัพพอร์ตแบบ universal หรือซัพพอร์ตแบบที่เป็น target group ซึ่งยังไม่มีทางเลือกมีทางเลือกหลายทางแต่ยังไม่ได้เลือกนะปัจจุบันที่ขนาดนั้นก็น่าจะอยู่ระหว่างการตัดสินใจของรัฐบาลว่าจะทำยังไง
ขอบคุณค่ะ I would like to share my experience, maybe out of date or not, whether my children is almost 40 years, so I would like to speak in Thai version. ลูกนี่อยู่สาธิตจุฬาเหมือนกันนะคะแต่ว่าตอนที่โรงเรียนสาธิตจุฬาเนี่ยคนหนึ่งผู้หญิงกับผู้ชายคนเล็กผู้ชายคนโตไม่เคยมีปัญหาคุยคุณครูที่โรงเรียนทุกปีละหนเนี่ยนะคะไม่ลูกสาวไม่เคยมีปัญหาแต่ลูกชายจะถูกครูว่าไม่ตั้งใจเรียนไม่ส่งกันบ้านนิวแซนเพื่อนหรืออะไรอย่างเงี้ยนะคะทุกปีเลยเราไม่อยากไปเลยเพราะว่าเรารู้สึกว่าตัวเองไปแทบทุกครั้งมีให้สามีไปคนหนึ่งเขาบอกว่าเขาไม่ชอบที่มาให้ครูมาฟังว่ามาเป็นหน้าที่ครูที่ต้องดูแลนะคะแต่เราก็จำเป็นแม่ต้องไปทุกปีก็พอมาถามลูกว่าทำไมลูกถึงไม่ตั้งใจเรียนไม่ส่งกันบ้านล่ะลูกพูดว่าครูสอนอะไรก็ไม่รู้ขอโทษนะคะลูกชายบอกว่างี่เง่าขอโทษนะคะเราก็ไม่รู้ว่าลูกเราโง่หรือลูกเราอะไรทำไมถึงพูดอย่างนี้แต่ทีนี้สุดท้ายหลังจากที่เขาจบมาแล้วเขาก็เรียนจนจบปริญญาเอกตอนนี้จบมาปริญญาเอกมา 6-7 ปีแล้วนะคะก่อนนั้นด้วยเพราะตอนนี้คนเล็กนี่คือ34แล้วนะคะก็เลยไม่คือเราก็ไม่รู้ว่าโรงเรียนเนี่ยกับผู้ปกครองเนี่ยฟังขอบคุณที่ดร.ลินได้พูดเนี่ยนะคะ very important for parents but for my case maybe it's out of the rate because it's too long very long time but I would like to share my experience only. I don't know whether now it's Satijala demonstration school now changed or not. I'm not sure. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I think your story is very common. I mean, I mentioned I was afraid when the teacher called that it would be bad news. And it requires very little for a teacher to reach out to a parent and say something positive about that child before they ever work with a parent on a negative problem. So it's the fault of the school for not inviting you because and not making you feel you are a really important part of your son's education. So many, better things could have happened if they had just realized. But I guess my point is, schools can no longer assume they are the only ones who are teaching children. They have to reach out to parents. They have to, in a positive way.
ขออนุญาตนะคะดิฉันในฐานะที่เป็นครูด้วยนะคะแล้วก็เคยเป็นนายกเหล่ากาชาติจังหวัดเพชรบุรีและดิฉันก็ได้ทำโครงการพัฒนาทักษะวัยรุ่นหญิงลดปัญหาแม่วัยใสนะคะในฐานะที่เป็นครูเนี่ยดิฉันย้ายไปประมาณสัก10 กว่าโรงเรียนนะคะติดตามท่านว่าไปตั้งแต่สมัยเป็นปลัดอำเภอแล้วก็ในอำเภอการที่ครูอยากจะพบผู้ปกครองมากที่สุดก็คือลูกมีปัญหานะคะในขณะที่ลูกไม่มีปัญหาเนี่ยไม่ได้ต้องการอยากพบผู้ปกครองเท่าไหร่แต่ด้วยความที่มีผู้ปกครองเครือข่ายนะคะผู้ปกครองเครือข่ายซึ่งพบกับดิฉันเนี่ยก็เพิ่งพูดกันนะคะตอนนี้ดิฉันสอนอยู่สำเสนวิไลเขาก็บอกว่าคุณครูทำยังไงดีผู้ปกครองที่มาในเวลาเรียกประชุมเขาจะมีผู้ปกครองเครือข่ายในห้องนะคนที่มาคือคนที่ลูกไม่มีปัญหาคือลูกดีอยู่แล้วไม่มาคนที่มีปัญหาคือผู้ปกครองก็ไม่มานะคะเขามาขอจดใจนั้นว่าใครที่ไม่ส่งงานใครที่สอบตกอันนี้เราก็จดไปเขาบอกว่าจะลองเชิญเฉพาะผู้ปกครองที่ลูกมีปัญหามาคุยนะคะว่าจะเป็นยังไงบ้างนะอันนี้คือในฐานะครูนะคะเมื่อกี้ที่ฟังแล้วก็ในฐานะที่ฉันไปทำในเรื่องนี้เนี่ยนะคะฉันทำในโรงเรียนในปีแรกที่ไปที่เพชรบุรีเนี่ยเพชรบุรีเป็นอันดับ1ของภาคที่เป็นที่1ในเรื่องของท้องก่อนวัยอันควรนะคะก็ไปทำปีแรกได้เงินจากพระราชทานจากพ่อองค์สมนะคะจากสภาสตรีให้เงินมา 10,000 บาทบอกว่าไปทำกับกลุ่มสตรีอะไรก็ได้ผู้หญิงจะไปแล้วแต่คุณจะไปทำยันก็ด้วยความเป็นครูด้วยความเป็นแม่ด้วยแต่ลูกที่ฉันจบหมดแล้วนะคะก็คิดว่าเราจะทำกับเด็กวัยรุ่นนี่แหละนะคะพอทำปีแรกก็ประสบความสำเร็จก็คือหลุดจากที่1นะคะคือที่1ในด้านท้องก่อนวัยอันควรนี่ก็หลุดมานะหลุดมาแล้วก็ไม่ติดที่1อีกเลยก็ทำมา2 ปีก็ได้รางวัลสุดยอดเพชรน้ำหนึ่งจากสภาสตรีท่านกรุณาให้นะคะพอเสร็จแล้วปรากฏว่าสภากาชาดไทยก็ขอให้ไปพรีเซนต์ให้ปริญญาทูตนะคะเพราะว่าเขาอยากได้โครงการที่ทำเกี่ยวกับเด็กวัยรุ่นนะจะเล่าให้ฟังคร่าวๆว่าเรียนทำเนี่ยก็คือทำในโรงเรียนเลยเพราะฉะนั้นถือว่าการที่มัวไปทำวิทยากรเนี่ยค่ะมันไม่ทันการเราคิดว่าเงิน10,000เนี่ยกับเงินของเหล่ากาชาดบางส่วนตอนนั้นเรียนเป็นนายกแล้วก็ดึงเงินกาชาดมาบางส่วนแล้วก็เข้าไปในโรงเรียนทำก่อนวันวาเลนไทน์กันนั้นนะคะคือเร่งเลย3 โรงเรียนแล้วก็ทำในเด็กม.2 เพราะฉะนั้นเองเคยสอนในโรงเรียนต่างอำเภอเนี่ยสอนอยู่เด็กม.2 อยู่เด็กดีๆนี่เลยนะคะเด็กแบบเรียบร้อยตั้งใจเรียนนี่แหละท้องขึ้นมาไม่มาโรงเรียนทำไมไม่มาโรงเรียนตามไปถึงบ้านปรากฏว่าท้องกับรุ่นพี่ซึ่งจบม.6 เป็นอะไรเงี้ยนะคะแล้วก็พบว่าเด็กที่มีปัญหาคือเด็กม.2 มากที่สุดก็ทำในเด็กม.2 ขั้นแรกก็3 โรงเรียนตอนปีต่อมาก็ทำทุกอำเภอเลยนะคะพอทำทุกอำเภอเสร็จก็ทางผู้อำนวยการโรงเรียนเทศบาลบอกท่านนายกไม่ได้มีแค่มัธยมนะประถมตอนนี้ป.5 ป.6 น่ะเขาก็เป็นแฟนกันแล้วเขาก็แบบจับมือถือแขนกันแล้วเราก็ทำในของสภากาชาดไทยก็คือจับมือกับพัฒนาสังคมและความมั่นคงของมนุษย์ที่จังหวัดนะคะแล้วก็สาธารณสุขจังหวัดทำในของงานของยุวกาชาติก็เลยไปทำในของป.5 ป.6 ด้วยนะคะแล้วก็ทำทั้งจังหวัดแล้วก็ปีต่อมาก็ได้เงินจากปริญญาทูตท่านให้ไป500,000นะคะพอดีท่านว่าเกษียณก่อนก็เลยทำโครงการไว้แล้วก็นายกเหล่ากาชาติท่านต่อไปก็มาทำต่อนะคะแล้วรู้สึกว่าเห็นหม่อมหลวงปรียพันธ์เขาบอกว่าได้รางวัลอีกปีหนึ่งด้วยนะคะอันนี้ก็คือเป็นสิ่งที่ทำมา ทีนี้ปัญหาของบ้านเรานะคะอาจจะไม่เหมือนทางเมืองนอกก็คือตรงที่ว่าตอนนี้ในต่างจังหวัดเนี่ยพ่อแม่บางทีเข้ามาทำงานในกรุงเทพหรือไปทำงานที่อื่นฝากลูกไว้กับปู่ย่าตายายนะคะมันจะมีหลายเคสฝากไว้กับปู่ย่าตายายบางทีเนี่ยเราไปเยี่ยมบ้านบางบ้านเนี่ยนะคะมีเด็กเต็มบ้านเลยแล้วก็มีคนแก่แล้วก็มีน้าอยู่คนหนึ่งที่จะต้องดูลูกของพี่ของน้องเป็น10นะคะเพราะฉะนั้นการดูแลเนี่ยก็ไม่ทั่วถึงนะคะส่วนปัญหาที่พบในกลุ่มอันนั้นคือต่างจังหวัดแล้วก็บางบ้านก็คือครอบครัวไม่อบอุ่นพ่อแม่หย่าร้างนะคะบางคนก็พ่อไปทางแม่ไปทางหนึ่งเพราะฉะนั้นลูกก็ไม่มีใครอยู่บ้านก็หาเพื่อนแล้วก็จบที่การมีเพศสัมพันธ์นะก็คือคิดว่าผู้ชายคนนี้แหละที่ทำให้เรามีความสุขอะไรประมาณนั้นนะคะแต่ส่วนปัญหาในกรุงเทพนะคะก็จะมีอีกแบบหนึ่งก็คือเลี้ยงลูกแบบเป็นลูกคนเดียวตามใจมากเกินไปมากเกินไปไม่ต้องทำอะไรปู่ย่าเอาไปฝากปู่ย่าตายายเลี้ยงก็ปู่ย่าตายายทำให้อันนี้คือประสบด้วยตัวเองนะคะการบ้านไม่อยากทำบางคนก็ปล่อยลูกมีลูกคนเดียวลูกชอบเล่นเกมก็ปล่อยลูกเล่นเกมแล้วตอนนี้เนี่ยก็คือดูทีวีเล่นเกมไลน์เฟซอะไรทั้งหลายกับเพื่อนเยอะมากนะคะเวลาที่จะทำการบ้านแม้แต่พกเอามือถือเนี่ยค่ะไปแล้วก็เวลาก่อนจะถึงชั่วโมงเนี่ยแทนที่จะทำกันบ้านหรือทำอะไรเหมือนสมัยรุ่นเราไม่ค่ะเลิกกดเล่นเกมเพราะฉะนั้นสมาธิในการเรียนก็ไม่มีนะคะอันนี้ขนาดโรงเรียนท็อปไฟของประเทศนะคะก็จะมีกลุ่มเด็กเรียนก็เรียนอันนี้เราพูดถึงกลุ่มอีกกลุ่มกลางถึงระดับล่างมันก็จะมีอยู่อย่างเงี้ยค่ะและกลุ่มนี้ก็คือจะเป็นกลุ่มที่มีปัญหานะคะเพราะฉะนั้นก็ฝากว่าเราจะแก้ยังไงแล้วอีกอันนึงก็คือกลุ่มที่เป็นที่ทำให้เพชรบุรียอดของท้องกับมันควรเนี่ยลดลงคือในโรงเรียนนี่ลดแต่ตัวที่ไม่ลดคือกะเหรี่ยงค่ะนะคะกะเหรี่ยงที่อยู่บนดอย30 กว่ามีลูก10 กว่าคนค่ะแล้วคนสุดท้ายเนี่ยเป็นทั้งที่นั้นเข้าไปเยี่ยมนะคะเป็นทั้งดาวน์ซินโดรมเป็นทั้งลิ้นหัวใจรั่วน้ำหนักน้อยกว่าปกติขาเดินไม่ได้แม่ก็หนีบไปเงี้ยค่ะก็เอามาเป็นคนไข้ในพระราชานุเคราะห์แต่ว่าช่วยอะไรไม่ได้ผู้หมอบอกว่าผ่าไม่ได้ต้องให้น้ำหนักถึงแต่ด้วยอาหารที่ไม่มีถามว่าให้ลูกกินอะไรกินน้ำข้าวเพราะฉะนั้นความฉลาดเฉลียวหรืออะไรมันไม่มีอาหารไปอะค่ะตั้งแต่ตอนท้องเพราะฉะนั้นตรงที่เราต้องแก้ปัญหามากที่สุดก็คือกลุ่มชาวเขากับกลุ่มกะเหรี่ยงนะคะหมอที่มีลูกกันเป็น10ในขณะที่คนเมืองเนี่ยมีลูกแค่ครอบครัวละ1ค่ะ1อย่างมากก็2นะคะเพราะฉะนั้นอีกหน่อยประเทศไทยอาจจะมีประชากรที่ไม่มีคุณภาพเป็นจำนวนมากนะคะอันนี้ขอฝากไว้ด้วยนะคะแล้วก็ที่ดีที่เมื่อกี้ที่หมอบอกว่าจะทำเป็นสื่อนี่ดีมากเลยค่ะหมอเพราะว่าตอนนี้วุฒิสภาสตรีอะค่ะโดยหม่อมหลวงปิยพันธ์เนี่ยอยากจะขยายไปทั่วประเทศในการทำพัฒนาทักษะวัยรุ่นหญิงลดน้ำไม่ไปใส่นะแต่ว่าตรงนี้เราจะทำยังไงเป็นสื่อให้วิทยากรในแต่ละพื้นที่เพราะฉะนั้นคงต้องเป็นงานเร่งด่วนดีใจมากเลยค่ะที่หมอได้ทำโครงการนี้ขึ้นมานะคะขอบคุณค่ะ
Would you like to comment anything?
You brought up some points. You brought up some points that I think are.
She mentioned a lot about comparing about the she worked teenage pregnancy that you heard about, and finally she also mentioned about the inequity, especially in the city, urban area and suburban area, especially for the rural area. We are going to facing about the problem now. It's not only the parents. I mean, mom and dad take care of kids. It's
I was going to comment on that because in fact I've often worked with extended family instead of the parent when the parent is not the most involved person in the child's life. And so it may be a matter of drawing in who is the most influential in the child's life. And I realize that when I'm talking about this kind of program, I'm talking about people who have the 15 or 20 minutes to spend with their child in some kind of structured activity. If there are some parents who simply are so impoverished and focused on survival that they simply are not in that position. And that is very sad. It's a loss of resource for that child. I think a lot of teachers are keenly aware of that, and they become a surrogate parent to those children. You would hope that those teachers would become mentors for those children and assume, take some of that role that child is missing. Not that the teacher is going to be the parent, I didn't mean that, but that they would realize the limits facing that child, and that they would be more actively involved on a one-to-one basis with that child who's lacking that kind of parenting. But yes, drawing in the grandparents has been done in many situations. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed being here, and we love. Is there another question?
ก็คงไม่ใช่คำถามนะคะขออนุญาตแลกเปลี่ยนข้อมูลกับท่านวิทยากรนะคะคืออยากเรียนท่านว่าในประเทศไทยเนี่ยนะคะตอนนี้เนี่ยในโรงเรียนสตรีนนทบุรีในจังหวัดนนทบุรีนะคะท่านมีการสร้างนะคะโดยเชิญผู้ปกครองเข้ามาเป็นผู้ไกล่เกลี่ยในโรงเรียนมาทำหน้าที่เป็นผู้ไกล่เกลี่ยยุติความขัดแย้งนะคะระหว่างเด็กนักเรียนด้วยกันระหว่างเด็กนักเรียนกับคุณครูกับผู้ปกครองนะคะและผู้ปกครองที่เข้ามาเนี่ยก็จะได้รับการอบรมจากศาลเยาวชนและครอบครัวนะคะนั้นเป็นผู้พิพากษาสมทบให้ความรู้แล้วก็ผู้ปกครองเนี่ยสามารถทำบทบาทตรงนี้ได้อย่างดีเลยค่ะในการยุติความขัดแย้งก็ขอแลกเปลี่ยนนะคะว่าชื่นชมค่ะเห็นด้วยในการที่จะแก้ไขเด็กหรือจะช่วยเหลือเด็กเนี่ยผู้ปกครองเป็นเรื่องสำคัญที่ต้องนำเข้ามามีส่วนร่วมนะคะแล้วเราก็นำท่านเข้ามาในอีกบทบาทหนึ่งด้วยค่ะขอบคุณค่ะ
That's terrific. Thank you for bringing that up. That sounds like a wonderful project.
Okay. So thank you so much for Robert Blam and also Michael. We don't worry about even we have a few people. We are also video recording here, and all kind of video recording we will distribution by our website of National Institute for Child and Family Development for all changes that they have no chance to come in here. And we also ask permission from you and Michael and also Robert Blam that all the video PowerPoint presentation we also can distribution to all. Yeah, okay. So I will put all kind of presentation in the video in the website of the National Institute for Child and Family Development. So thank you so much for all the audience, for many organizations here, and thank you, a special thanks to our speaker, both of our speakers. Thank you so much.